Out in Nature is an LGBTQIA affinity group that helps to make sure that we are offering safe and accessible outings for people in Chicago to build community and to enjoy all the nature that Chicagoland has to offer.
And we do all sorts of events. It's pretty widespread in the things that we do.
Sometimes we watch birds, sometimes we climb things.
We went to the illumination lights at Morton Arboretum and it's freezing cold. We did a duck sit on one of the rivers here in Chicago to look at weird ducks. But one event that really stood out for me was a foraging event that we did in Washington Park. It was a learning experience that I've never had before, and it opened my eyes in new ways that I've never experienced.
I've always loved the outdoors, and I didn't always know where to find my people outdoors. I've often had some of the best experiences of my life in nature. I wanted to meet the other queer nature nerds and spend time with them in places that we love and enjoy.
I think Out in Nature is really special because you get people whose day jobs and professions are in kind of the nature environmental fields. And you get people like me who I knew what a bird was, but I didn't know like all the different kinds of birds before I showed up. And you just learn so much in a very accessible and a very friendly kind of way. So I think no matter kind of whether you know every single bird in the world or you don't know what a plant is, I think there's a really great kind of spectrum for you to fall in and to learn.
It's always hard to try new things, but I feel like this is the one place where I felt like I can show up by myself to things and it's going to be warm and welcoming, and you don't need to know anything about anything before showing up. You just show up. Like, you don't need to be an expert birder, you don't need to be a rock climber. You can just show up as yourself and be excited to learn because you're going to be with a whole group of people who are excited to learn with you.
I think as a trans person, it's really hard to come into your own and then try and find people who see you for who you are. And it can be hard with people who already know you because they remember a different version of you that's not really quite accurate. But to get to come into a group who share the same interests, who have similar stories and experiences, and are there to just support you and see you for exactly who you are has been incredibly validating and affirming for me in ways I didn't really know were possible. So for me, it's been a really cool way of finding friends, of finding community, and honestly of feeling more confident and proud of myself as a queer trans nature nerd.
There are infinitely many ways, of course, to be queer, and unfortunately, lots of people like to tell you which ways are the correct ways or which ways are the incorrect ways. And oftentimes we're told that connecting with nature is not a correct way to be queer. Being able to come into a community that absolutely just balls that notion up, throws it away and burns it up, and then just wraps you in a big, beautiful nature hug is just about as special as anything I could ask for.
It's really important to remember the power of healing that comes with spending time outside. And when we think about the violence and the trauma that's enacted against queer and trans communities, nature becomes a really vital resource in combating that trauma and preventing continued harm to a really vulnerable population. And I think more organizations need to see themselves as having a really major role in combating hate and violence towards queer and trans communities and creating spaces of healing in nature, because having a community can make a really big difference in someone's life. It can literally be life-saving.
It is one of the few first spaces that I ever really felt like myself in. Having spaces where people love you for your identity, even when that's not something you always have, is the most wonderful thing. And that's what Out in Nature brings. It just kind of combines these two worlds of fascinating nature, cool stuff with beautiful, wonderful queer people.
Make sure to follow us on Instagram at OutInNatureShy and check out our website at outinnature.gay. We're always excited to have new people join us and also excited to be cheered on by all our allies and partners.
Congrats, you're gay now.
Yeah.